What is up, everyone? Man, this looks kind of light. What is up, everyone? Good morning. This is your morning wake up call with Justin. It is 10/28/2025 here live on YouTube. It's Tuesday. We survived Monday somehow. Monday was a long one, though. I'll tell you what, man. Holy cow, was Monday a long one. No joke. It was. It was a long day yesterday. Wasn't too bad, but it was pretty. It was definitely it was decent. Just long. It took forever for the day to get going, and then it was just a slow day at work, and then it just dragged on. It's just like, man, I'm ready to get the weekend started for myself and get things going, get the ball rolling on some things. I'm really excited here. I'm really excited here for the next couple of weeks and finally be able to just focus on myself and focus on what I want to do because I finally figured out like what I want to do and the dream I have and the vision, and hopefully if I can pull it all together, I won't have to work. Well, I still have to work, but not. I don't have to work on my job as much, like my actual job. That's my goal is to like make enough money between like doing this and reselling that I want to work um that I want to work as much at my regular 9 to 5 and kind of just mix the two a little bit and just not have to be grind 9 to 5 all the time and kind of just take it easy a little bit. Not take it easy, but not have to work as hard. So that's the dream, really, is to make enough money from those two things to supplement part of my income, so I can just do the two part time, and then eventually, hopefully, one day, make this my full time gig. But I don't know how that's gonna work out. I think that's gonna take a little while still before we're getting close to anything like that. So we still got a little bit to go on that one. I'm not sure when that's gonna happen. But if I keep on doing this, keep on staying consistent, streaming every morning for 2 hours, watching content and making videos, I mean, eventually we should get there. I haven't edited a video in a couple days here, so it's been a while since I uploaded anything. Because I've been so busy lately with work and stuff like that, I don't have time to do it really. Like today, I got people coming over at like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock to like clean stuff, clean the furnace out, stuff like that. So now it's like I gotta do all that today and don't have time really to do much. So, well, I got time to do stuff, but I mean, though, it's like always a race against the clock. It's always a race against the clock to see how much you can do and how much you get done. But slowly over time, though, I'm slowly building up momentum, though. I'm slowly building up momentum in that kind of aspect of life, of like picking up after yourself and like make sure things are like tidy and clean around your house, because the more you're the more the more your life is picked up, the more free time you allow yourself. Um, because I used to be like, all right, well, my 2 days off, on Tuesday, clean the house and do all my house stuff, and then Wednesday I kind of just chill. When really I should have been, keeping up on my house stuff the whole week and not letting it get so messy where I'm spending, a whole day cleaning my house. So it's kind of like I kind of learned that like that was actually hurting me pretty badly, doing that because it just wasn't. It was, you know, it was just eating up time. I was spending one of my whole days off just cleaning up the place, and it just didn't work very well. It just yeah, it was just a waste of time. And like the more you keep up on things, the more you keep your place clean, things organized, ready to go. You know, it's kind of like more of a flow, and you're kind of getting more like a flow state of things. So like your day kind of flows better and kind of goes better for the fact that like everything's in place as it should be. Everything is where it should be. You're not wasting extra time looking for things. You're not wasting extra time cleaning up messes you've made throughout the week. But this is just me personally though. Like this is not you know, this is why they say like everyone's like when people like a lot of people ask like, you know, other people like what's the key to success, you know, and how did you become successful? And a lot of people are like, you know, well everyone's different, you know, everyone how everyone becomes successful is different. And it's true because everyone has different routines and different schedules and different things you can do. Like I stream early in the morning because that's what fits my schedule, you know. But like you're starting off somewhere and you work in the morning, well, it's like you shouldn't be streaming in the morning. You should be streaming during the afternoon or the night when you have the free time. So it's like everyone's way of becoming successful and like the routine and the discipline you need to become successful is different for everyone, but like the main underlying stuff is all the same. Like you need discipline, focus, a dream, and all those things. But how you become that way is completely up to you, based upon like your lifestyle, what you're doing, who you are, where you're from. Because obviously, if you're married and have kids like that, then you have to take into account like their whole life and find a schedule to work around them and what they do. So you can't just like do what you want. It's like I said too. You know, I always thought um, me being alone and was my downfall, but it was really my greatest weakness because I have all the time now to do what I want. And now that I know what I want to do with my time and who I am, stuff like that, like you know, I definitely have a better direction of what I want to be and stuff like that than I did I don't know 3 or 4 months ago when I was still doing this, trying to play games, whatever. I kind of gave that up and kind of focused more on this, but this is more my style anyways. I've always kind of been like a big talker. Uh, I mean, I know stuff. I'm not stupid. I know that. Um, I like giving people advice. You know, I always, even at work, you know, even though I work in a kitchen, I feel like I'm a therapist more than I am a cook, really, when I go to work, you know, because you're dealing with, I'm dealing with people's problems all the time and, their life issues and stuff like that. And, I mean, you know, I believe, I think, you know, a majority of people in the world are decent people or good people. They're decent, good people who just kind of like lost their way or don't know the whole truth of what's going on or whatever. But they're not bad people. I don't think most people are bad people. I think you'd be surprised on how people are just like decent people who just are just, you know, normal, run of the mill, uh, NPCs types. I do believe that NPCs do exist in this world though. That are just like they're just so gone. It's not they're gone. It's just like they're so tied up in just like the wrong stuff and not into like the real world type things. You know, me and some kid were talking about that the other day. Me and some young kid at work we're talking about that the other day. How like people getting, you don't understand how people get into football so much, and I just don't get how grown men give other grown men their energy like that, and like worship other men. It's like you guys are weird, dude. I would never give up. I would never give my masculine energy to another man. Be like, oh my god, you're so much better than me. Da, 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 da. Like I would never do something like that, dude. Why would you give up that kind of like thing about you? But most people, a lot of men do though. A lot of men worship football players. It's weird. Very weird that some men do that with other men. Very strange. I don't get it. It's just weird to me. Like why you would give up that like masculine frame and almost like oh you're a better man than me blah blah. No, that's not the point. The point is you want to be the top dog, baby. You want to be number one. You want to be the best. So you can say I'm the best. I'm number one, motherfuckers. You know, whatever it is, whatever you walk into. Like I'm number one. I want to be the best. When you walk into the gym, you want to be the biggest dude in the gym. You're a man. You want to be the biggest guy in the gym. You don't want to be the smallest guy there. You're like, I'm top dog, dude. It's me. You know. But even I was telling someone at work the other day too. It's like I've asked for a hard life. I would walk home. I would walk home and look up at the sky and ask God to give me a challenge or give me a hard life or come on, bring it on. And almost like kind of like entice them. Come on, show me what you got. Give me your hardest. I want to see it. Type stuff. Yeah, I would do. I would do that. I really would actually. I would be like, come on, give me your hardest challenge you got. I'm gonna, knock it out of the park and everything like that. I haven't done that in a while though. That's kind of like be careful what you wish for because it might come true type shit. You know, like you're asking God for hard challenges. Guess what? You're probably gonna get some hard challenges thrown your way. Especially if you're asking and begging for it. And then day two, it's like I wish people just wouldn't have wouldn't be fearful as much, man. That's all really. And just knowing like if you believe in the Father and the Son, you really should have nothing to fear. And if you do good in life and you follow the words and you love thy neighbor and show other people love and love yourself and all those things, then you really should have nothing to be fearful about. It's kind of like it's kind of like the whole jobs. It's kind of like the whole like job thing. It's like if you have a job and you do good at your job and like, hey, I close down good, I clean good. I went through the whole checklist. I checked all the closing procedures. I'm in the right state of mind. I'm sober and all those things like that. Then you should really have nothing to worry about in the night when you go home. If you did everything right and how it should be done, you should have nothing to worry about. Kind of same way with like faith, religion, the Father and the Son and stuff like that. It's like if you have, if you believe, the Father and the Son and you have faith and stuff like that, then you should have nothing to be fearful of. You should know your soul's clean about what happens. God's gonna take care of you, no matter what scenario it is, and you shouldn't be fearful at all of anything for that fact. And that's why you should choose God and love and Jesus over everything. For the fact that if you believe in them, you won't have any fear. Why be fearful? That's the true. I mean, that's really one of the true powers of it, and that's why I turn towards that. It's because it's for that fact alone. It takes the fear out of you. So that's always something to think about too. It's a little something something. Not sure what we're gonna do today on stream. I kind of want to watch the Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson interview, but that's like 2 hours long. I don't feel like watching that for 2 hours. I could probably watch it for maybe like 30 minutes or so, but I don't think I can watch the whole thing for 2 hours. It is daily devotional though. A leader's heart. A 365-day devotional journal. I thought we just do this. It'll kind of give you a background of like what I am and how I see things and how I lead. Abuse of power. And he wrote in the letter saying, "Set your in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retreat from him, that he may be struck down and die." Samuel 11:15. Pittacus wrote, "The measure of a man is what he does with power. Leaders wield power for one reason only, to serve. Consider the path to abusive power in leaders. Stage 1, surprise. I get this. Stage 2, self-esteem. I need this. Stage 3, satisfaction. I deserve this. Stage 4, selfishness. I demand this." By watching King David weave a tangled web following sin with Bathsheba, we notice 5 common abuse of power that will trip up leaders today. Calvin Miller describes them this way. One, drifting away from those disciplines we still demand of our people. 2, believing that others owe us whatever use we can make of them. Attempting to fix things up rather than make things right. Refusing to accept that we could be blindly out of God's will, believing that people in our way are expendable. Do you recognize any of these? Do you recognize any of these stages or abuses in your leadership? Uh, I mean, I guess one, drifting away from those disciplines we still demand of our people, because it's like, even though, like, as a leader, you set the rules and standards, it's like if you never do anything or you just sit, like, I mean, I can just, I'll give examples of like working in kitchens because I've worked in kitchens for so long. If I go, okay, when you close the kitchen at night, trashes need to be taken out, bags need to put back in the trash cans, floor swept and mopped, dish tank emptied out, and all these things, whatever. And then, sometimes, if I'm lazy or if I'm tired, or whatever, I might skip one or two of those things. And the next person in the morning who opens up, um, might be like, "Hey, you didn't put," they'll probably joke around with me because I'm the boss. They might be like, "Oh, you forgot to do this or do that," but like, it's not, that's not they're joking. It's kind of like it's kind of, it's more them saying like it's funny you yell at me for doing this, but you do it too, type thing. And they'll bring it up and mention it to you. Um, so yeah, I mean, people are people are people. Even though I'm in charge of a kitchen, I still have my days where I want to go home early and don't want to be there. So it's like, keeping myself disciplined and sticking to the rules that I set for others also, are set for myself. Because if you're a leader and you set rules and you never follow any of your rules, or you do what you want to do, then you're gonna have a mutiny on your hands because no one's gonna respect you. If you're like, you can't be on your cell phone at work, but you're always on your cell phone even though you set the rules, and then when someone calls you out, you're like, "Oh, I'm in charge. I can do what I want." That's how you start. That's how people are gonna hate you. They ain't gonna like you one bit. It's like rules for thee and not for me type shit. That's what that is. Um, yeah, I guess like attempting to fix things up rather than make things right. I guess that's instead of like instead of facing conflict, you try to work around it without both sides knowing about it, kind of type deal. I guess I'm kind of guilty of that just because I don't like I don't mind confrontation. Like I'll do it if I have to, but if I don't have to do confrontation with people, I don't. I try to avoid it. I guess it's kind of like something that I need to work at and do better. Is like confronting people head on when things happen, and confronting them for it, and being like, "Hey, this is wrong," or like, "You can't talk to people like that," or whatever it may be. Instead of like trying to work around the problem in of itself, and not really ever confront anyone about their problems. So yeah, I would say, you know, those would be the two things really. Would be making sure I set, making sure I, making sure I'm following my own standards that I've set for people, not only at work but in my life. And then when there's problems, trying to make it right instead of fixing it, and actually confronting the person about the problem instead of just working around the problem without them ever knowing really about it. So I'd say there's only two things. Because for me, it's like when I get into a situation, whatever, like I like, I know people pretty well, and I know, and trust I can read people like a book. I know people's actions and how people act and the way people work and how the mind works. So like for me, I can definitely I can definitely I can definitely control I I can control a situation behind the scenes without anyone knowing what I'm doing. Just because I know people so well, and I'm always testing people to see who's talking. I'll sometimes when I'm at work, I'll throw I'll throw out information out there that really isn't real, and then if I hear it come back to me, I know who's leaking information. That I do that. I 100% do that. I'll throw out fake stuff and see who and see if I hear it back. If I hear it back from someone else, I know who leaked it, and then I know not to trust that person to an extent, and be careful what I say around them. Listen, I mean, another thing you need to learn about life is that's really important. Is people are always watching and listening to what you say, whether you know it or not. People are always watching and listening to you, and then telling others about it, whether you know it or not. That's 100% fact. We go when you go to the gym. Like when you go to the gym workout. People are watching you. People are watching what you're doing, how you're working out. Because it's happened to me before, where and I'll be working out, and some guy will come to me like, "Hey, what's your name?" Like blah blah. Like, "Oh yeah, I watch you work out all the time and ask questions." So it's like people are always watching what you're doing, whether you think about it or not. People are watching you, and they're talking. It's true. It's just life. It's just how people are, though. That's just how people are, you know. But you also need to know that like people are watching what you're doing and talking about it at all times when you're out in public. That's why like, you know, perception, how you dress and how you look and how you act out in public is part of the game too, because people perceive who you are without even knowing who you truly are. Like when I go to the gym, I wear certain kind of shoes and hoodies and sweatpants and stuff like that. And this guy's like, "Oh, are you a boxer?" I'm like, "No, I'm not a boxer." He's like, "Oh, well, from your shoes and the way you dress, blah blah blah. I thought you were blah blah." But it's like a whole perception thing. So those two things, perception and people always watching and talking about, who you are and what you're doing and what you're saying. So you always gotta think about those kind of things. Um, and I don't try to I don't know, I keep a pretty low profile these days. I got long hair and stuff like that for a reason. It kind of like when you have like a long hair and like a scruffy beard and you just wear whatever you want, people already have like a perceived notion of who you are. Like, oh, he's lazy, he's a stoner, blah blah type thing. It's like, and I don't, and it's kind of like a trick. It's kind of like a trick. It's kind of like a decoy. That's not who I am, you know. So some people get it and some people don't. You know what I mean? I don't know what to tell you, but like some people get it and some don't. But at the end of the day, it's who I am and what I do. So I'm gonna keep on doing it. I'm gonna keep on being who I want to be. So it's not gonna change for anyone or anything anytime soon. So, but again, this is my life, not your life. So do what you want. You know, like I said, take all this stuff as a grain of salt. I don't want anyone following anyone. I want everyone to be their own people. You shouldn't really follow people or crowds or anything. You should listen to your own heart, your own gut, and your own intuition when it comes to things, decisions about your life, and who you want to become, what you want to do, because you know you better than anyone else. So go out there and do what you want to do. Hoo hoo hoo. What we're gonna do today on stream? I don't know. I kind of want to watch the Nick Fuentes Tucker Carlson interview for a little bit and see how that goes. And then I don't know what we're gonna do. We'll find something though. We'll find some stuff. Oh, custom cursor trails. Choose trail. Close. Oh no. Let's not do that one. That was horrible. Yeah, we're gonna do Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. This should be interesting. I'm surprised he had him on his. I'm surprised he had him on his show. To be honest with you, I really am. That's shocking to me.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was very political. I was reading a lot of the libertarian stuff, Austrian school, Chicago school, economic type literature, because that's what was popular at the time. If you went online in the early 2010s, that's all the conservative content there really was. That was the most extremely online type
Libertarian
stuff.
economics.
Well, yeah, basically, kind of the remnant of the Ron Paul revolution.
Yes.
The Young Americans for Liberty, PragerU, which kind of skews a little more, I guess, conservative, but very basic small government, individualism, libertarian type stuff.
So you watch PragerU videos?
Oh, yeah. I was in the Prager Force.
What's that?
It's a Facebook group for college kids, and they promote the PragerU videos.
Wow.
To the college students and high school students.
So you really were a product of the moment.
I said, wow.
Absolutely.
And how'd you feel about Trump?
Well, initially, I didn't like Trump. When the primary started in 2015, I considered him to be a statist.
Yeah.
Which sounds so ridiculous.
Oh, yeah,
now.
No, a lot of people thought that.
Yeah.
We gotta look up.
And I was a libertarian.
We gotta look up King Solomon's.
So I saw him as a big governor.
We gotta look up King Solomon's temple today too. Because I'm hearing like Trump's ballroom is like King Solomon's temple.
Government, 1990s liberal. When he was asked about health care, he said, well, we'll take care of everybody. And I said, I'm a Rand Paul guy, Ted Cruz guy. Those were kind of my people back in 2015.
You like Ted Cruz?
I was a cruise missile.
Does Cruz know this?
I don't think so, no. I was actually on his campaign.
You were on the Ted Cruz campaign?
I don't know if I was on the campaign, but I door knocked in a little village in Chicago, in McKinley Park, for Ted Cruz.
No way.
In the Illinois primary.
Did he write you a thank you note?
No, I didn't get a thank you. He lost, so I guess.
Yeah, he did. He did in a very humiliating way. So
he lost.
Wow, that's amazing. So, so what happened?
So, I, like everybody else in 2016, went through this ideological awakening. And first, I shifted to Trump. And the first realization that I had is it started in 2016, actually, because the primaries, started in 15, around April or May, I think was the first announcements. And I had very negative feelings about Trump. And like I said, pro Rand Paul, pro Cruz. But when the actual Iowa caucus happened and the primaries began, I saw that Trump was dominating. And every night in the Super Tuesday, when they had all the big contests, one after the other, I remember the media was furious that he was winning one after the other. And I remember thinking to myself, like, structurally, if I'm a libertarian or a conservative and we want to change the country, we have to win elections. If you want to win elections, you have to bypass the media. I sort of had this realization that the media was really standing in the way.
Course.
They were the problem. And I had this realization that all the conservatives
Why
and
does he
Republicans
breathe
up to
so
that point
he
were
breathes
afraid
so
to
funny?
take on
Why?
the media. They, like Mitt Romney, would cower.
You notice that how he
them.
breathes?
They were so apologetic and so weak. And so initially I said, you know,
It's so weird.
I actually don't
He goes-
ideologically agree with Trump at all, but he will destroy the liberal media, or at least their monopoly on thought and opinion.
Yes.
And then a breakthrough can occur.
Why does he do
So
that
that was
for?
kind of the first hump. And I said, you know,
So weird.
I could get behind Trump because he's a winner. He'll win for our side. And that was kind of the first big thing. And then as I
Dude,
listen to him more
If
and
he
more,
does
his
that
speeches
again,
and his
it's
rhetoric,
kind of annoying,
I
actually.
started to think about immigration.
Which you
And-
hadn't really considered before?
Never.
You
And
know,
the
I was
reason
thinking
why is
like
because I was
I
from
was
a 95% white suburb. So the diversity had not really reached my corner of Chicago yet. Me and my family, not so much my family, they grew up in the city, but growing up in the suburbs, I was insulated from that. So it was just not even, it's actually, you're going to love this. I don't know if I've ever even said this on an interview before. I was listening to Mark Levin's show. This goes to show how normie I was.
Actually?
I listen to him every day.
You
Wow.
listen to Mark Levin every day.
In high school, yes.
Wow.
I was a fan. I loved his show. And I actually liked how he was kind of obnoxious and mean to his callers.
Yeah.
Vicious. And I liked that. I thought that was funny. But I'll never forget one show. He goes live and he says, America's becoming a majority non-white country. Does anybody think that's a good idea? And I was thinking to myself, yeah, that actually doesn't sound so good. I didn't really even think that America's becoming majority minority like that. And,
Wait, so you were radicalized on race by Mark Levin?
yes,
Are you making that up? Is
that's a real story.
What?
amazing?
Mm-hmm. He planted the seed at least. And then I saw a graphic on 4chan or Twitter, and I'm sure you've seen something similar. It said, this is what the map looks like, the electoral map. If only men vote, if only women vote, if only whites vote, if only non-whites vote. And it became very obvious what the electoral problem is. It's demographics. These immigrants are coming here. They're going to turn Texas blue like they turned California blue.
Yeah. I
And,
saw it happen.
yeah. And, you know, you look at even the opinion polls. These people don't believe in free speech. They don't believe in the Constitution, the Second Amendment. As a libertarian, the things that are, and as American, things that are important to you, they don't believe, they don't understand these things. And so I said, that's another political obstacle. You've got the media, you've got immigration. So I'm thinking like, well, we're going to vote for Ted Cruz. He's going to be the constitutionalist. We'll vote for Rand Paul. He'll be the libertarian. But what stands in the way of political power for us? It's the media and it's immigration. So I said, well, we got to get Trump to beat the media, build the wall, deport the illegals. And once we set the country straight, then we
Kind
can
of,
actually
I mean.
have our constitutional republic back. That was kind of the idea. And that's the mindset that I had going into college.
Amazing. So then what happened?
So I go to college and I'm just at that point a huge Trump supporter. And you got to understand, for me, for my generation, so I was 18. I turned 18 in August 2016. And to us,
That's
Trump,
amazing.
yeah, well, because we're like the first generation that was influenced by Trump coming of
Yes.
age in that moment.
No, I say it's amazing because when you're living in something, you don't appreciate its full significance. But to be 18 in August of 2016, so this really is, as you're forming your views and really yourself
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
middle of this. We'll admit that we are not the most disciplined
Huh.
snackers. When the pantry calls, we answer.
Interesting.
It can be cruel, but what if there was a way to snack like you want to snack and not deal with the consequences? Heaviness, bloating. Well, there may actually be an answer to that. It's called Vandy Crisps, brought to you by the same people who make the incredible Mossad chips. Vandy Crisps were made.
The online kids, teenagers that supported him, we really believed the hype. Like Teflon Don, like he could go into any scenario and win. Like he was unstoppable, unflappable. Nobody could score points on him. He just seemed like
Teflon
they
Don,
say
huh?
he can't stump the Trump. Like he could not be stumped. And so he just had this aura of inevitability, invincibility. And I loved that. And so I went to Boston University. I got on campus in September, and I was wearing my MAGA hat everywhere, in the dining hall, walking down the street. And it's a city campus. So you're walking down Commonwealth Avenue and, you're in the city of Boston, which is super liberal. And at that time, it's different than it was now. People were getting fired for wearing MAGA hats. People were getting punched in the face. It was like being a Trump supporter it was out there actually back then. It was controversial.
That's kind of crazy.
It was controversial everywhere, not even, just in liberal Boston. But so I was wearing my hat everywhere, and I was just getting accosted constantly. In the dining hall, people would come up and yell in my face. Some black girl in a hijab ran up to me and said, "You know what you're supporting? You're racist." And I'm trying to get my pizza, I'm trying to get my oatmeal or whatever at the dining hall. This was happening constantly. And so I was going then on Twitter, and I had a small Twitter account with my real name and face, and I had, maybe 200 followers, and I'm posting about my experiences.
That's crazy. See?
And I caught the attention of a lot of people on campus for wearing the hat, for posting on Twitter, and they found my Twitter.
You've only been there like a month?
Less, weeks, maybe 3 weeks. This is starting to kick up. And I catch the attention of my peers, and they start going at me on Twitter and giving me death threats. "We're going to kill you. How dare you? If I see you, I'm going to beat your ass," that kind of thing.
Wow.
And this is my first experience with this. Now we're all kind of desensitized to it, but that was my first run-in with this intensity from the left. So I file a police report. I get real nervous. And, when you're a student, you can't really avoid other people. You're in a dorm room. Exactly. You're in so you're vulnerable. And anyway, long story short, so one of these guys from the campus libertarian group, Young Americans for Liberty, he reaches out to me and says, "Hey, I'm not going to say his name, but he goes, I go to a school in Boston. I'm from YAL." He said, "And I'd like to set up a debate with you and one of these people that's been giving you a hard time on campus," because they were doing a lot of events. He said, "Is that something you're interested in?" I said, "Absolutely." And so he goes around and he asks some of the bigger people that are antagonizing me on Twitter, and everybody says no. And he goes, "Yeah, no one's going for it." I said, "Well, can you try again? Can you?" And so he finds one guy.
Why,
and he
though?
turns out to be the student body president of the whole university.
Could be you.
Yeah, the senior, this liberal douchebag progressive. And he's the student body president of the student government there. And so we set up the debate. It was about a week before the actual election. So I think it was end of October, beginning of November. And they hold it in this auditorium in the center of the campus. And like 300 people show up. So it turns into like this huge, and they're all liberal. They all hate my guts. They're heckling me the whole time. They're yelling at me. We do this debate about Trump versus Hillary. And so I'm there and I'm pro-Trump, and I say, I think Trump's going to win. And I'm straight up like ripping the Ben Shapiro talking points. I'm saying, it's got everything to do with culture and nothing to do with race, and diversity's a problem and all this. And I decisively win the debate. It's like not even close. The debate wraps up, and this girl who I think I had talked to her on Twitter once or twice comes running up to the stage after the debate, and it's Cassie Dillon. And at this time, she's a fellow at Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's company. And like I said, I barely knew her. And she comes running up and she says, "Oh my gosh, I live streamed this debate on Periscope on Twitter." She said, "And 30,000 people watched it, and you have like 5 job offers. You did incredible." I said, "Wow, I don't know what to say. That's great." She goes,
"You're 18 years old."
Yes. So it's like happening very quickly for me,
Wow.
And she goes, "Do you want to do a post-game interview after the debate?" I said, "Sure." And so she asked me about how I thought the debate went and what my views are and things like that. And, very normal stuff. And then at the end, she says, "I just got back from doing study abroad in Israel." She goes, "And it was amazing. Would you ever take a trip to Israel?" And I said, "No, I think I got everything I need right here in America." She goes, "Oh, okay." And she wraps up the interview. And that was a little bit of foreshadowing. And this begins a relationship not a romantic relationship, but we become friends and we start talking. And she's plugged in, like I said, a Daily Wire. She's talking to people at Right Side Broadcasting Network, the college Republicans. I start to develop this friendship with her. And over time, she lands me this show on Right Side Broadcasting Network. And in this time, I'm really starting to lean into America first. I'm becoming more pro-Trump as time goes on. And what really stood out to me was Trump's inaugural address in January 17th. So this was just a couple months later. And in Trump's inaugural, he says famously, a new vision will govern our land. It's going to be only America first, America first. And I said, that's me. Like, that's what I believe.
Yeah.
I'm an American nationalist.
Me too.
Fully at this point, not even a conservative. And there was one thing that happened just before that that really struck me as strange. And I've told this story before. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but suffice to say, Barack Obama in the lame duck period, so the Democrats lost the election. He's on his way out. There's a resolution of the Security Council condemning the settlements in the West Bank in Israel. And typically, the U.S. delegation will veto those resolutions condemning Israel. Well, Obama's on his way out. He's got nothing to lose. So the U.S. delegation abstains from the resolution, and it passes. And Fox News and all the pro-Israel conservatives are calling him an anti-Semite. They're saying he hates Jews. He's an anti-Semite. He hates Israel. And I saw that, and it struck me as strange because it seemed hypocritical. It seemed like how when conservatives would critique anything about race, we got called racist, or anything about feminism, we got called sexist. All Obama did was uphold U.S. policy on the West Bank that we've had since 67, which is we don't support the settlements. I said, how is it anti-Semitic to just be consistent on our U.S. foreign policy? Like I said, which is a Republican-Democrat consensus. And I got attacked for this. I wrote a big article about this. I tweeted about it. I tweeted to Ben Shapiro. I said, I've never seen anything on the Daily Wire that's actually critical of Israel. And he quote tweets me. And at this time, I have 1,000 followers on Twitter.
How old are you?
I'm 18. I'm a
You're
freshman.
still a freshman in college, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this is even before I started my show. And I don't know, I probably got 100 likes on this tweet. It wasn't a viral tweet. He quote tweets me and says, to accuse a Jew of dual loyalty is the surest sign of anti-Semitism.
Oh, man.
And this is how it sort of begins.
Crazy.
And I see this tweet. And by the way, that was on Christmas Eve in 2016.
He immediately called you an anti-Semite.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So I'm driving to Christmas Eve Mass with my family. And I see on Twitter, the notification comes up, Ben Shapiro quote tweets me, calling me an anti-Semite.
Wow.
And I was like, what is this?
Damn.
Why is this guy attacking me? Because I don't have a platform at this time. I'm not an influential guy or anything. And so then I put out another tweet, similar. I said something like, if you're China first, you should live in China. If you're Mexico first, you should live in Mexico. If you're Israel first, maybe you should go live in Israel. And again, he quote tweets me and says, you're an anti-Semite.
That same night?
This was, I think, a couple weeks later. Happened a little bit further down the line. And so...
Were you surprised that he knew you were?
Yeah, I was.
That's crazy.
I was surprised at why he cared.
Yeah.
Because I'm
That's
thinking,
weird.
How does he even know who I am or what I'm about?
Yeah.
And it turned out that Cassie Dillon, she had texted him earlier and she wanted him to take me under his wing. She texted him after that debate and said, you really like this guy. He's amazing. He did this great debate. She goes, but he's a little too pro-Trump. He's a little too Trumpy. And he goes, I'll take a look. And so I guess the two of them were kind of grooming me in a sense.
Weird.
They wanted me to go maybe and be a Daily Wire or maybe looking me as a potential conservative activist or influencer. And so they started paying attention to me. And the more critical of Israel I was, I started to get this really intense pushback from the both of them and from a lot of the people at Daily Wire.
Why do you think, so you're
Huh.
an 18-year-old college freshman, you're really
Interesting.
talented and you're engaged, you're really interested, and you ask not crazy questions like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
And rather than explain it, they just call you a racist, call you an anti-Semite. That's the first response. That seems like the least effective. Well, it turned out to be not very effective in your case,
Uh,
but that seems
Yeah.
like the least effective thing you could do. Why do you think they did that?
Well, I think that you have to look at it not in retrospect.
The long
because
game?
hindsight is 2020. And so looking back, you could say they made a terrible mistake because look at sort of what they provoked or what they catalyzed. But at that time, you got to consider I'm 18 with no following, with no network. I'm coming from the suburbs of Chicago. My parents didn't go to college. I have no connections. And so for them, it was very easy that if they detected that a promising young guy was going to become anti-Israel in the conservative movement, they could crush that person easily
Right.
and grind them under the heel. So they sort of were alerted, oh, there's a precocious young guy that isn't on board with Israel. We'll keep an eye on him.
A precocious.
And if he gets too vocal or popular,
Good word choice.
we'll cut him down. We'll crush him. Because at this time, as you know, in 2017, it's a very different time. 2016, 17,
Yeah.
any criticism or dissent on the subject was a death sentence. You became radioactive, unhireable, blacklisted, and that's exactly what happened. And basically from then on, it was just this escalating series of blacklisting, censorship, hit pieces, rumors to try to ostracize me from the movement. And
While you're a college student?
yes, as a freshman, yeah.
Most coffee companies sell weakness, watered down drinks from faceless corporations that don't care about you or your family. Black Rifle,
Weird.
which, not to brag, is in this cup right here, is very different. It's roasted and
That's
brewed
strange,
in
man.
this country without apology by patriotic men and women. The coffee is built by people who love the U.S. and know what it means to fight for it. We know them. We know it seems like a big part of your political evolution.
Yes.
You went from a fan / acolyte to an opponent and then just pivoted against everything
Yeah.
that he believes.
Yeah. It was because it was this new dialectic that Trump forced.
Yeah.
Trump planted the seed.
And the seed was America first.
Yes.
So once you accept that, a lot of the way we're doing things becomes impossible to support or justify.
Right.
The contradiction becomes apparent. It gets moved to the center and it becomes unignorable if
Yeah.
you're consistent.
So what kind of efforts did they make to make you go away?
So this is a couple of months down the line. You know, first they would try to dissuade me from asking questions because I was friends with a lot of the Daily Wire writers, not just Cassie Dillon, but many of them were Jewish. And I would ask them point blank. I would say, so why do we give Israel all this money? $3.8 billion per year? What is that for? And they would say, well, you know, there's a really good answer for that, but you're asking it in the wrong way. You're asking it in an anti-Semitic way. I'd say, I'm asking for the proof. You know, what's the argument there? And so first it was the sort of, hey man, could you kind of tone it down? Maybe just don't bring that up so much. But I was persistent because at this time I was genuinely inquisitive. I wanted to know, is there an actual reason? And I was actually expecting that there was a really good reason for all of it. And the more that I read, the more that I dug into the subject, the more I found out there's a lot of these neocon Jewish types behind the Iraq war. There's the foreign aid complex, which is really unique. There's AIPAC, which is this intense foreign lobby where it's bipartisan. It seems to be the only thing that the parties can agree on.
Huh.
And so it just made me burn more with curiosity. So I just kept asking them. And eventually they said, you know what? We're not going to
Yeah,
talk to you
I only
anymore.
got 30
These
minutes
are
of
my
this.
friends.
This
I
is
met
like his
them, went to
story.
Christmas parties with them. And all of them one day said, you're done. We're blocking you. We're never going to speak to you again. We're never going to have you on our show. And I said, wow, like this seems like inhuman. I'm struck by how impersonal this is. Like here, I thought we're friends. We're all conservatives. Maybe we disagree on one issue. Now I'm being canceled by the right. So I was shocked by this.
When was this?
This was February or March 2017.
So you're still a freshman in college?
Yes.
Are you even paying attention to college at this point?
No, not at all. And my grades started to suffer because I was just really focused on this.
So that's pretty young to get canceled and pretty young to have friendships destroyed over politics. Like that's usually, like decades down the line.
Right.
What did you do?
Well, I just became more emboldened. And so I took this story on my show. At this time, I was on RSBN, and I had this show, which I named after the inaugural. It's called America First. And I would kind of subtly bring up the Israel topic and say, this is something you're not allowed to talk about. This seems like an apparent contradiction. It's a big problem. And they escalated their attacks. Cassie Dillon would call my boss, who she was friends with, at RSBN every day for weeks, saying, "You'll never believe what Nick said on his show tonight. It's so racist. It's so bad. You got to take him off the air. It's going to make you look bad." And I would then get word from my boss, Joe Seals. He was the founder at Right Side. And he would call me up and say, "I don't know what has gotten into Cassie. I thought you guys were friends, but she is calling me every day hysterically, demanding that I fire you." And I was like, wow, so it just keeps getting worse.
Crazy.
It starts with this, they're very weird about the subject. Then they don't want to talk to me. Then they're trying to get me fired. And I'm thinking, okay, so clearly what I'm asking about, there's some truth there that they don't want.
I should have asked you this earlier, did anyone during the course of, pre-cancellation say to you, here are the reasons? You're not asking the question correctly, but there are reasons that our foreign aid to Israel is so high. And here's what they are.
They did, but in a very general and vague way. As you know, it's never specific. They would say things like, well, they're our partner in the Middle East. They're a democracy in the Middle East. Just as very vague. It's rhetorical. And I read The Israel Lobby by Mearsheimer and Stephen Walt, and they break it down very succinctly that there's no real strategic benefit. Actually, there's strategic liability. Eastern Mediterranean is not a strategically important region. The intelligence that Israel provides is not useful. Actually, it's detrimental because they frequently lie. The technology we give them, they pass along to the Chinese, which was a big scandal. So I would give them all this and say, yeah, that's not adding up. And they would say, yeah, well, you really just can't talk about that.
Your friend said that to you?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so what happened to your job? The Right Side broadcasting gig?
Eventually, I got fired. I got kicked out.
Why?
Because one of these clips that Cassie Dillon had a problem with, she ran it up the flagpole. She took it to Media Matters, actually, which is a left-wing outfit. They're like a cancel mill. And
wait, the Daily Wire person took it to Media Matters?
Yes.
Are you sure?
I'm 99% sure.
Huh. What was the clip?
It was a clip, ironically, where I was talking about the travel ban, the so-called Muslim ban, and I was defending it. And I said that the First Amendment does not protect foreign nationals. It doesn't protect Salafists, Wahhabists.
Right.
He's like, I said, they're saying that there's a constitutional right for radical Muslims to come here. And I said that, how are they protected by the First Amendment? They're foreign nationals. And the authorial intent of the First Amendment was actually not even to protect that to begin with. It's kind of anti-Christendom radical ideology. So it's something, ironically, that probably Shapiro and Cassie would agree with, but they recognize the currency that a clip like that would have with the left, because the left could say, you're Islamophobic, you're racist.
It's interesting, your audience, as I imagine it, I've never seen any of your numbers. I don't even know how big your audience is. It seems big to me, but I think of them as young men. Mm-hmm. That's the bulk of your audience, right?
Yes.
And yet here you are criticizing weed and video games and the internet, and you work on the internet. You are a creation. I mean, you wouldn't exist without the internet, of course. You didn't get a job at NBC News. So what kind of reaction do you get when you criticize weed, gaming, and the internet to young men?
A lot of them agree with it because they get it. It's their life.
Yeah.
A lot of them, that's their life. Their life is... And another thing we didn't even bring up is the porn thing, which is there also. This is their life. Weed, gaming, porn. And I think they know it's bad. I think they know there's like some sense of guilt. And so
that's true.
It's interesting. I would say it's maybe an 80-20 split, where 20% say, oh, you're against weed? Not cool, man. It's just a plant. Well, they're very defensive about it, about these addictions. And I think 80% say, I know I have a problem.
He's not wrong.
Conscience. I know it's bad. I know it's terrible.
Why are you against weed?
Because
makes you lazy.
I think that it
stops you from dreaming. There's a bunch of stuff.
The integrity of your mental faculties. I think there's
Everything.
something deeply wrong with that.
Yeah.
When you, I'm against alcohol too. I think it's wrong to numb pain. I think pain is a part of life. I think sobriety is like should be experienced, and I think that weed is even worse because I think that one, it's very dangerous. There's a lot of numbers now out of like California and Washington that people are going to the hospital for psychosis. People are going crazy because of
It's
it.
also more subtle and therefore more insidious. Like you can't, I've done it. If you have a 12-pack for breakfast, like everyone knows. But if you take a hit off the dab pen, like nobody knows.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use it all the time.
Yeah, and it makes you a loser. It makes you lazy. You know, people that are addicted to weed are not motivated.
He's
don't
not wrong.
care about anything
Facts.
other than weed. You know,
Facts.
there's sort of like an irony there where I used to hang out with a lot of stoners in high school. I never smoked weed, but all my friends did.
But all my friends did. Okay.
They were so chill and relaxed and didn't care about anything. But if you criticized weed, they would freak out and get extremely defensive.
Yes, I've noticed.
Right? If you insinuate that it's addictive, if you say it's a problem, they get very like junkie behavior. And
he's not
so
wrong. It's true.
I think it's disgusting.
What is porn exactly? Like describe how available is porn? What is it?
Yeah. Okay. President Trump. Let's remove this from the playlist. I can't take that anymore. Palantir in the conspiracy to own everything.
You apply for a job. Never hear back. Your resume uniquely filtered. Not by a person, but by a prediction algorithm fed by your uniquely private life. Past employment, your social media, your race, your relationships. Then processed to make a decision whether you can afford to live. You search for chest pain symptoms at 2 a.m. The next day, an insurance company emails you about a specific plan tailored to you. You get pulled aside at an airport. No stated reason, you just matched a pattern. They're reading your shadow, the data you've shed, the gestures you've forgotten, and the correlations you didn't know existed. This isn't fiction. This reality is being constructed right now, and there's one group that's making this possible. They're called Palantir. A group that has quietly operated behind the scenes for years. And what they've built isn't a system of raw surveillance. It's authorship. The ability to write your life before you live it.
Influential lives, DHML. On Monday, a federal judge temporarily blocked the Trump administration move to revoke people's authorization to live in the U.S. under the CHNV programs. White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt called the judge ruling rogue.
And what's being authored is something that will mark the rest of the 21st century.
The Palantir.
Something that will absolutely impact each and every person watching this video, no matter who you are and where you live.
Palantir's coming for you. It is, though.
So, who is Palantir?
Peter Thiel.
Palantir is a publicly traded corporation that specializes in big data integration on the software level. But what does that mean? In layman terminology, Palantir focuses on the orchestration, organization, and implementation of data. A ton of the information behind the scenes that products and services need. With a focus on automating the decision-making processes with that existing
With a few clicks, Ukrainian Palantir engineers showed me how they could mine a dizzying array of battlefield data that, until recently, would have taken hundreds of humans to analyze. Palantir software processes raw intelligence from sources including drones, satellites, and Ukrainians on the ground, as well as radar that can see through clouds and thermal images that can detect troop movements and artillery fire. AI-enabled models can then present military officials with the most effective option to target an enemy position. The models learn and improve with each strike, according to Palantir. Interesting. As well as a radar that can see through clouds.
Data infrastructure.
Hmm.
But how and where do they do this? They do this for corporate clientele such as JP Morgan, Wendy's, to public entities such as Britain's NHS, Norwegian Customs, Danish POL, Intel, Predictive Policing, all the way to ICE and the CIA in the United States. Product lines such as Palantir Gotham allow police departments to predict potential crime with data of citizens in a given community. They can even run probability for whether someone might have a mental health crisis. For militaries such as the IDF, Gotham can expand drone capability to be completely autonomous, controlled, operated, and executed by a machine learning algorithm.
Crazy.
Palantir Foundry can automate logistics and make predictive outcomes in healthcare and supply chains, such as Britain's NHS. As we speak, Palantir is experiencing an unprecedented rise in market cap, growing by 23 times since 2023. They were founded
Jeez.
by Peter Thiel, a billionaire venture capitalist and mega donor of the Republican Party, who broke campaign finance records by donating a whopping $15 million to J.D. Vance's 2022 Senate campaign.
Crazy.
Thiel is also famous for pushing for fully private-owned cities, city-states entirely owned by corporations.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
Yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions in play.
Weirdo.
Should the human race
Weirdo.
survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But
In
the
my
second
own.
major player is the eccentric CEO Alex Karp, an odd technology CEO who has remained in the shadows until recently.
To disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them.
A question emerges
Whoa.
here. Amidst a very unstable technology market in the US, an economy generally bearish at the prospect of new technology investment, how has Palantir quietly grown by a seismic 23 times? Palantir didn't grow overnight, but the acceleration they are experiencing seemingly did. An acceleration fueled by robbery in plain sight. A heist that dwarfs anything in history. Yet, it's important to note the past 40 years of neoliberalism can be described as a heist in general, an unprecedented seismic extraction of wealth from normal, day-to-day working class people, to the point where the rich have never accumulated more wealth compared to the rest of society in human history.
Wow.
But we all know this. Many aren't surprised that the top 10% own 93% of the entire US stock market.
Wow.
That the top 1% own over 30% of all wealth in the US. Journalists, economists, and even the rare politician have warned us for decades that this level of extraction is occurring.
That's crazy.
But without outright crippling society to the point of economic collapse, what else is there to take? Turns out, a lot more. And it's far more powerful and substantial than money could buy.
It's your personal information, I imagine, huh?
Now to President Trump and Elon Musk's latest moves to reshape the federal government. The top Social Security official stepped down after Musk's team requested access to sensitive personal data about millions of Americans. Senior political correspondent Rachel Scott is tracking it from Mar-a-Lago.
After the 2025 presidential election, the Trump administration announced the creation of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, with the official aim to cut, quote, fraud, waste, and abuse in the public sector. Headed by Elon Musk, and with ex-employees of Palantir, Musk made an official goal of cutting $2 trillion in what he claimed was identifiable waste. In actuality, the final sum expected to be cut is $160 billion, with official estimates showing that DOGE's total operational cost to be around $130 billion itself. And according to a report from Yale's The Budget Lab, the measures to cut various government agencies is expected to create a net loss of $300 to $500 billion over the next decade. And despite this, this has been the Trump administration's greatest success. That's because DOGE is a lie. The point was never to cut fraud, waste, and abuse. It's a facade for an ambition much greater and far more consequential. In February of 2025, members of DOGE gained root access to a plethora of government IT systems, such as the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the U.S. Agency for International Development. But the real crucial one is the Social Security Administration, harboring one of the most sensitive databases in the United States. Birth dates, historical addresses, employment history, financial records of every single American.
Wow.
It doesn't take a genius to understand what is going on here, but what sells the terrifying endgame is the transparent, illegal nature of this. Federal courts have blocked DOGE from entering these databases after it was already done. But that's the point. The repercussions do not matter. Even if courts find DOGE and the Trump administration in judicial contempt for illegally accessing federal databases, the data has already been siphoned.
Why would they want... Well, I guess we'll find out here in a second why they want all that information, huh?
In April of
Seems like a lot, though. I don't know why they want all
Judge
that, but
Ellen
whatever.
Hollander
I mean...
denied DOGE access due to concerns around privacy and the Fourth Amendment, along with the Fair Privacy Act, a 1974 law that requires explicit protection of personal data unless there is immediate urgency in law enforcement functions. Which, as the courts reflected, there clearly is zero urgency to combat crime that would necessitate unfettered access to
this video
the
is
Social
just
Security
like,
Administration's database. Yet, in June of 2025, in an absolutely contradictory and wild ruling, the Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration had authority to executively access federal data.
It's one thing to criticize your former employer. It's taboo to do that. But to criticize an employer that also owns extremely lethal technologies and surveillance technologies that are highly invasive and used in war zones is something else entirely.
Oh.
It's 2025. We're all kind of used to government surveillance. The idea that we're all being watched all the time and don't own our own personal data has become normalized. We're also used to the military spending vast amounts of our money on just a few giant defense contractors. But one tech company
Sean
wants to
Morrow?
change both of those things and become the ultimate military contractor and the ultimate arbiter of all of our data.
Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them.
Check out Palantir shares surging 22% after the company cited a boom in demand for its AI software from the U.S. government.
We're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am.
Palantir, a tech company based here in Denver, claims they can revolutionize government systems with their data analysis software newly powered by artificial intelligence. They've been hired by the Department of Defense, the FBI, local police departments, and even the IRS and Wendy's to take in the information those organizations collect even more information, and use that data to draw conclusions.
It can be used to completely reconfigure organizations' ontology, its reality, what systems matter, what information matters, what processes matter, how they are structured, what biases are introduced at each of those stages.
We talked to a former Palantir employee, dug into decades of research, and listened to hours of Alex Karp's own words to unwrap the layers of Palantir's carefully cultivated sales pitch, how they capitalize on fear, uncertainty, and unrest.
I don't think in win-lose, I think in domination. This is a company built for bad times. Bad times mean strong finances internally. Bad times are very good for Palantir because we build products that are robust, that are built for danger.
Let's rewind.
Man,
Palantir's story starts with one of the most effective things a company can have for sales: fear. After the September 11th attacks, the United States government began expanding surveillance both at home and abroad. This was, of course, a boon for the defense industry at large. Simultaneously, the Silicon Valley tech industry was growing fast and making people in a once obscure industry very, very rich, very, very quickly. Like the founders and executives at PayPal, known as the PayPal Mafia. Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn guy, and Peter Thiel. When PayPal was sold, Thiel had millions of dollars burning a hole in his pocket and an idea. PayPal had developed systems for detecting fraud and crimes on the platform. What if they could use similar thinking to analyze the world at large? So Thiel pulled from his network to build out a new company. One of the first hires was Thiel's Stanford Law School roommate, Alex Karp, who'd gone on after Stanford to get a PhD in not business or computer science or engineering, but neoclassical social theory. He named the company Palantir, after the Palantiri from J.R.R. Tolkien's
neoclassical social theory?
In Lord of the Rings, a Palantir stone is a magical object that allows its users to predict the future or to see what's going on in a remote location.
It was originally created by the elves. It was meant to be.
Yeah, it's like a AI predictive future programming, I guess, kind of, that takes all the data and tries to predict the future. I imagine that's what they're doing.
Used for good purposes. It is potentially a very dangerous technology. It's very powerful.
Long have you hunted me?
So that's Middle Earth, but what does Palantir do in a regular Earth?
And what we do is we use what legal scholars call predicate-based research. So we would look at you, and then we would go out and say, oh, there's lots of different things in your life that may be indicative of someone involved in bad behavior.
Put simpler, they make software that makes it easier for their customers to collect and analyze data, and then act on that analysis, with and without AI. By 2013, 10 years after their founding, Palantir's client list included the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the Marines, the Air Force, Special Operations Command, and more.
Wow.
Did your company helped to track and kill Osama bin Laden?
You know, we can never. I'll tell you, the closest thing to an answer is there are when you look at when you open the paper and look in the news about these kind of things, there's a 2/3 chance, depending on the country involved, that somehow my company was involved.
Fundamentally, the mission that is pushed to
Interesting.
employees is that we're solving the world's hardest problems and supporting Western institutions. That is the main driver of sort of this militaristic culture that is developed inside of Palantir.
If you do not feel comfortable supporting the legitimate efforts of America and its allies in the context of war, don't join Palantir.
This entire message of
crazy.
We are the most lethal, we are the most able to surveil and process large amounts of data.
You have created the system which you call kill chain.
Privately. Publicly, the lawyers have some innocuous
So
something like tech for the amelioration of unwanted blah blah blah. some term we're supposed to use.
Okay, let's.
For me, it's the kill chain.
Kill chain sounds good.
Kill chain isn't an original term created by Palantir. It's the more general military verbiage for the series of decisions leading from identifying a target to taking their life. Palantir's contract added their software and artificial intelligence to the kill chain.
It's quicker and better and safer and more violent.
It's tech that Juan helped market.
It reduces the distance you have to the problem, but when you're able to take step back and really see all the narratives and how they were shaped and the actual application of these
Yeah, they're using it to. It makes sense.
falling apart.
It makes
which is
sense
something
why
that,
they'd use
you
that,
know,
though.
Definitely happened to me.
Juan didn't leave Palantir entirely for ethical reasons. He just got another job. But the reason he eventually started speaking out
He
against
just got
Palantir
another
came after
job?
watching the Israeli invasion of Gaza following the October 7th attacks. Palantir has contracts with the Israeli Defense Forces. The exact nature of the contracts is opaque, intentionally, but there is evidence to suggest that Palantir's artificial intelligence tech was used for selecting targets in Gaza. CARP doesn't mind the controversy. In fact, it's part of the marketing.
Palantir will even pick up the projects that other companies rejected for political reasons.
Wow.
We are very comfortable being unpopular.
CARP doesn't think controversy will lose Palantir customers.
Whatever is pissing them off, they're still buying the product.
Wendy's hired Palantir to help with their supply chain. Palantir works with health insurance companies to build AI for denials management to protect revenue.
Do you want Palantir's
Interesting.
AI making decisions about what care is covered for you and your loved ones?
They also do business with for-profit hospitals, major investment banks, and even other defense contractors. In 2024, Palantir brought in nearly $2.9 billion.
That's crazy.
55% of which came from government sources, with the vast majority being American. So let's look at their pitch to the American government. Last year, Palantir CTO Sham Sankar put out a presentation and white paper called
The Defense Reformation.
He cites The Last Supper, which was a secretive 1993 meeting between defense industry executives and the Deputy Secretary of Defense. Over a dozen companies walked in, and only a few walked out. That dinner is often cited as the origin of our consolidated military-industrial complex.
And to me, I think this was the definitive moment that kicked off the financialization of defense. From that point forward, it became all about buybacks and dividends and leverage ratios.
Criticizing the financialization of the defense industry, calling out stock buybacks, that doesn't sound like a defense executive. That sounds more like the exact argument about the defense industry that we have made before.
I think what's interesting to me about Palantir is how they co-opt the language of revolution.
But Sankar's argument did work on somebody, Uncle Sam. The Defense Innovation Board, an advisory group within the Department of Defense, cited Sankar's presentation multiple times in their 2024 report on why the DoD needs to divert more of their budget to emerging technology. That's giving money to Palantir. There's a reason Palantir just replaced Ford Motors in the S&P 100 in the months after Trump was elected. The Trump administration is an ideal customer for what Palantir is selling. First, there are many former Palantir employees sprinkled across the Trump administration, from inside DOGE to foreign policy advisors to high-level technology appointees. And Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel, heavily invested in the company, is also heavily invested in President Trump and Vice President Vance. He was a major campaign donor to both. Then the stated goal of DOGE is to streamline and combine government data, which is exactly what Palantir does.
The ways that the government is defrauded is that the computer systems don't talk to each other.
And obviously, CARP is loving it.
Disruption, at the end of the day, exposes things that aren't working. There'll be ups and downs. There's a revolution. Some people can get their heads cut off. Like, you know, it's like we're expecting to see really unexpected things and to win.
And what is winning, according to Palantir? This is CTO Sham Sankar in 2021.
Turning to government, we continue to advance our mission of becoming the U.S. government's central operating system as we extend our footprint across defense, healthcare, and civilian agencies.
The government's operating system. They want everything to funnel through Palantir. Palantir already has contracts with the IRS, going through taxpayer data to save auditors time by finding the easiest audits to pursue. Now, Wired reports, DOGE will likely hire Palantir to create unified software for the entire IRS, a mega API that would allow anyone with access to view and possibly alter all IRS data in one place. That's all of your financial information. And they have multiple contracts with the Department of Health and Human Services, including nearly $100 million to support HHS's core administrative data and applications, to manage, ingest, and access data securely across business domains. HHS's core responsibility is Medicare and Medicaid. That's control over millions of Americans' health records and their access to healthcare. So what does it mean for one contractor to have all that power, data, and taxpayer money as profit, especially as AI gets involved?
As we kind of increasingly live in a simulated world, we lose touch with reality and the human decisions that matter, and we move closer towards governance by algorithm, not only made by decisions of automated artificial intelligence systems, which is a problem, but more importantly, subject to decisions made by the people who are influencing these AI systems and creating them in order to fulfill an agenda for whatever their profit-seeking or control-seeking objectives are. And when I see
Weird,
kind of going into
it's very
agency
interesting
and addressing the IT
I don't like
department
it
first, I see it as an opportunity to try to change reality itself.
But so what? Why am I
but
telling you all
it will
this?
only last for
Palantir
so
has
long though
no
before people get
problem
tired
being
of it.
seen
That's the
as
thing
Big
too.
Brother,
It's like
as all powerful, as lethal even.
We're at the brink of
people will go with
using
this
these
for a little bit,
technologies
but
potentially
eventually
to
people will get tired
run
of
our
it.
government, to run our battlefields and our personal lives. Using artificial intelligence as a sort of panacea solution across our federal departments, and especially when they're, again, wielded by people with a very distinct agenda, puts everyone at risk.
It almost feels like that's been the plan all along. Here's co-founder Peter Thiel in 2010 at Libertopia, a libertarian conference, speaking about tech companies and government.
The basic idea was that we could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics.
And here's Alex Karp in 2009 on civil liberties with regards to Palantir's work.
The central question, in my view, of civil liberties is how, it's not if the government has data, because let's assume the government has as much data as a health insurance company. It's how is that data being used? Is it being used in a way that's lawful? Meaning, do they have the right to use it? And is it being migrated into places it's not allowed to be used? We allow the enforcement of rules that government ought to enforce. And by the way, my experience is they want to enforce, or at very least know they need to enforce. And if it's framed in that way, then you can have what is the ultimate Silicon Valley solution.
One co-founder openly wants to use the power of the tech industry to affect politics. The other wants his company to have oversight over how the government data they're paid to handle is used.
And the founders of Palantir will retain control in the company no matter what, through an obscure ownership structure. Their Class F shares grant them 49.99% of voting power, even if they collectively own as little as 6% of the company.
At the start of this journey, I was extremely afraid for the repercussions
Crazy.
of writing, of speaking out, but now I'm like, even more convinced that this is absolutely necessary.
We can't replace our current broken system with an even more broken one. And we can't let the worst people in Silicon Valley become our government.
It's not about whether you're actually at risk for speaking out or not. It's just the idea that somebody's watching you is enough to push people into silence.
Interesting.
If you are on the phone, on a text message thread, or an email thread, and somebody else on that thread, it doesn't matter who, is a foreign national, you have no expectation of privacy, and the government can intercept everything that you're doing and saying. Now, you've not been accused of a crime. The government hasn't gone to court and said, hey, this Danny Jones guy, we think he's up to something. We need a warrant. No warrant. They just take it.
Weird.
Whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not, they just take it. And NSA not just takes it and holds it, they offer it up to the FBI. And they say, hey, we've intercepted these communications. We don't know if they're important or not, but you might be interested in
Might
them.
wanna look
And
at
they
'em.
just turn them over. Well, there are no courts involved in any of this.
Weird.
This all came from the Patriot Act. Another thing now is the FBI, or really any law enforcement organization, has to get a warrant from a court to collect your metadata. Now, you can figure out a lot about a person just from the metadata. Who are you calling? Who are you meeting? Are you calling an abortion clinic?
And like, what are you watching?
Right? Are you calling a criminal defense lawyer? You don't even need to know what the substance of the conversation is. Just who you're in touch with. Okay, so the FBI, they need a court order, a warrant, to get that information. Actually, they don't. Now they can just purchase it from the phone company, or from Twitter, or Facebook, or Verizon, or anybody else, because all of it is bundled and sold. Now, it's supposed to be sold for advertising purposes, but the FBI is not using it for advertising.
Right.
Interesting.
And the Supreme Court's never made any kind of decision on something like this. So why would they go to court and lay out their hand and risk the information leaking to you or to the media when they can just buy it from big tech? And that's what they're doing.
I've heard the argument against this before, or the pushback against this is like when it comes to things like the San Bernardino shooting, and I remember there was a big stink with the Apple.
I never really
FBI
thought of that
attempting to
before.
Give up the phone.
Absolutely right.
But there's the argument like, look, if the FBI could have had access to this guy's phone, maybe they could have stopped something like that. And if every American, can just be okay with the fact, like, okay, no, the FBI and the CIA, they don't care about what porn you're watching. They don't care if you're cheating on your wife. They don't care about all this, normal everyday sort of like drama. But they need the oversight to be able to weed out people like that and to save people's lives.
Boiling that down, what you're saying is if you haven't done anything wrong, then
you have nothing to
why
worry
worry?
about. Right.
Do you know who the first person was to offer up that rhetorical question in a public venue?
Who?
It was Joseph Goebbels in 1933. That's what we have to be careful of. That's the slippery slope that we have to stay away from. I haven't done anything wrong. So sure, the FBI can have my stuff.
What was the context of that?
Germans didn't want to report on things that their neighbors were doing.
Okay.
And Goebbels said, why not? If you're not doing anything and they're not doing anything, the information's just innocuous, then what do you care?
Interesting.
That's heavy.
And then they started rounding people up. Now, do I believe the American government's going to round people up? Of course not.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do believe, and I believe this because of firsthand experience, is if the government decides to target you for whatever reason, they don't like your politics, they don't like your face, they thought maybe you were involved in something else they couldn't get you on, they'll try something else, something different, then there's nothing you can do to protect yourself. Nothing. Now, getting back to the San Bernardino shooter.
That's interesting.
You're right. They couldn't crack that.
But they were saying that back then.
And Apple refused to help them. And it went to court, and Apple won. They ended up turning it over to an Israeli company. And the Israeli company charged the FBI $6 million, and they cracked it. But the information that would have disrupted the attack didn't come from the phone.
Wait, Apple never turned it over to the FBI?
And Apple wouldn't open the phone for the FBI.
Really?
No, they would not.
I remember that case,
they
actually.
They were staunch about it.
Okay.
In fact, the FBI director complained later that it was $6 million of the taxpayers' money that otherwise didn't need to be spent. Well, actually, yeah. To protect our civil liberties, yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Apple did the right thing. But the information that would have disrupted that attack did not come from the phone. It came from the game system. Have you ever seen the Netflix series Fauda?
No.
F-A-U-D-A?
No, I haven't.
It is one of the best TV series I've ever seen in my life.
I never heard that either.
It's an Israeli series, but sure, F-A-U-D-A or F-A-W-D-A. I can't remember. But anyway, it's it's an Israeli series, but it was made by a group of guys who were former Shin Bet and former Mossad. But it really does give you a balanced view between the Israelis and the Palestinians. It's shocking that they were able to even make something like this. Yeah. Yeah. Like you're gonna have sympathy for both the Israelis and the Palestinians in this. Like you're gonna want both sides to win, which doesn't make any kind of logical sense. But anyway,
what
in
is he
the most
talking
recent
about? Like
season,
what?
there's this ongoing thing that they do where they only communicate with each other through a backgammon app, right? Because the Americans, the Russians, the Chinese, the Israelis, the French, the British, everybody's intercepting everything, right? Phones and emails and text messages and intercepting everything. Nobody's looking at backgammon apps. And you know, all of these game apps that we have, they all have little chat functions when you're playing live. Right? I have a backgammon app on my phone. I play against Lebanese and Turks and Syrians all the time. I do. It's fun. And you can chat. So that's how Mossad and Shin Bet communicate with their agents, because they know it's not going to be intercepted. And even if it is intercepted, no human being's ever going to see it. It's just game chat, right? But it's not game chat.
Interesting.
It's very serious operational planning. That's what the San Bernardino shooter was doing. He was communicating over like a Wii or whatever it was, a Twitch or Switch or whatever. I don't even know anymore. My kids are
Twitch or
beyond
Switch
that now.
But interesting.
But that's the danger. The danger is in gaming systems.
Like when it comes to the government looking into like private communications of people, is it just like how much attention are they really paying?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Is it just a big catch-all?
Zero attention normally.
Yeah,
it's a big catch-all.
Weird.
You know, NSA built this facility in the desert in Utah, right? And they started building it right after the 9/11 attacks, and there's enough computer memory there to save every phone call, every text message, and every email from every American for the next 500 years, right? That's how much space they have, how much memory they have. No human being is going to listen to 99.9999% of any of that stuff. It's just being vacuumed up by these, you know, Cray computers or whatever those supercomputers are called these days. And it's being held in case someday law enforcement needs to go back to it for leads or for information about a crime that has been committed to build a case.
That's wild.
Which is great. Well, it's not great, but you know, if it's not going to be used against somebody for unethical purposes, I can understand it, provided that they get a warrant.
It's one thing to criticize your former employer. It's taboo to do that. But to criticize an employer that also owns extremely lethal.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Nope, your phones are spying on you. We already kind of knew that, though. That makes sense, though. If you want to know, if the government want to know something about you, they just buy it off Facebook, your cell phone provider. They wouldn't just get a warrant. They just buy the information. That's actually kind of interesting. I don't have really thought of it before, how they could do that, really. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, I never really thought of that, actually. I really haven't.
What's up, guys?
You have no idea what planet.
I would argue that neoconservatives have very successfully rebranded, and I think Peter Thiel is a very important example of that. So Peter Thiel, as an example, Palantir has. My whole book is about how.
When today's
There is a colossal.
in today's
So, we're living in an extraordinary moment in history. We're living in an extreme. There is also meat economy that you want to build. The economic system that the United States has been based on, that has worked for essentially the top 10% for sure, and certainly for the top 1%, has not been working for 80%. And
Yeah,
it's gotten to the point.
Right now.
Joining us now is Brandy Cruz and Nick.
Are we still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
I think what's happened with this whole Epstein thing, I think there are parts of it that are true. But I often wonder.
Yes, we are still talking about Jeffrey Epstein because
Right now, without your knowledge, really means you.
They're spying on you, Bluetooth, huh? Oh yeah, King Solomon's Temple. Who was King Solomon, actually, first of all?
If you watched our last video, you saw how David, the forgotten shepherd boy, became Israel.
King Solomon.
There are many figures in the Old Testament.
Biblical stories explained.
But one character from the Holy Scriptures that stands out when we think of wise men is none other than the wise King Solomon, a man who is credited with unifying Israel under peace, stabilizing the economy, and building some truly magnificent structures.
Interesting, huh?
But like all good things, Solomon would eventually be lured away from the blessings his God had given him, and would soon stray under the pressures of his own moral temptations. For the purpose of this video though, we'll be looking at Solomon's early days, and in the infancy of his rule, where he first gained his reputation as a wise king. Solomon is described as always having been blessed and loved by God, even as a baby, given that he is considered to have been a peace offering from God to King David, after God killed David's firstborn child, having conceived the child in an adulterous relationship. Despite having 6 older half-brothers, King David was convinced by his wife, Bathsheba, and the prophet Nathan, who was said to have raised Solomon while the king was away, to make Solomon king. Evidently, there were others who believed Solomon was special, and that as a king, his potential would flourish, and everyone would benefit. By electing Solomon, one might also say that it denied the ambitious Adonijah, another son of King David, from taking the throne himself. When Solomon did become king, he was very quick to vanquish his opposition and assume the role of king, although he wasn't particularly sure of himself. The story of Solomon's judgment begins where God appears to Solomon after having been pleased in the way in which he ascended the throne. He tells Solomon that he wishes to grant him anything that he desires, and that all he has to do is ask. We see how noble and some might say pure Solomon is, for he doesn't ask for power, riches, women, or any sort of otherworldly gift, but instead asks for wisdom, and wisdom alone. Solomon was aware of his own limitations, and while he was a king, he knew he could not be a good ruler if he did not possess knowledge. In a sense, you might say that this is selfless, as it appears that Solomon's
I want to watch.
The Wisdom of Solomon. It's a poetic remix of the main ideas found in the wisdom books of the Hebrew Bible, but with a Greek flair. An anonymous Jewish author wrote this book in Greek sometime in the 1st century
Interesting.
BC to represent the biblical values of wisdom and fearing the Lord for Greek-speaking Jews of their own day. With the spread of Greek culture throughout the ancient world, followed by the rise of the Roman Empire, many Jewish people found it difficult to remain faithful to their biblical heritage and convictions. Many groups adapted, and some even abandoned their faith altogether, adopting a more cosmopolitan way of life, including the worship of many gods and the many moral compromises that came along with that.
Huh.
So the author of this book turned to the Torah and prophets and the books of wisdom to create a new Solomon-like voice to speak to a new day. Someone who could talk like a wise Israelite sage and like a Greek philosopher. His goal is to persuade struggling Jewish communities to see that the God of Israel is the true king of the nations, and all rulers, philosophers, and Israelites should give their loyalty to him. The Wisdom of Solomon was not ever included as part of the Hebrew Bible. It was written in Greek, and that's why it's not considered scripture by later Jewish and Protestant Christian traditions today. But it was very popular among Greek-speaking Jewish communities, including the Messianic Jews who followed Jesus. So some early Christian traditions adopted this book into an expanded scriptural collection. And that's why it's part of the Roman Catholic and Orthodox Deuterocanon collections today. But despite those later differences, this book has been valued and studied by Christians across traditions and through the centuries. And here's how it works. The opening movement in chapters 1 through 6 portrays the world in terms of a stark contrast. There are the wise and there are the wicked. Each group is loyal to different authorities and has different values, and each has a different destiny. This section has a really cool symmetrical design, beginning and ending with an anonymous voice who addresses the rulers of the earth. He adopts the challenge of Psalm 2 given to all world rulers, calling them to submit to their king, the Most High God, and to seek his wisdom about good and evil. In the matching conclusion, we discover that the speaker is a son of David, Solomon figure. And as in Psalm 2, the kings of the world are called to learn true wisdom by acknowledging that their rule is under God's authority. The author is subverting the illusion projected by the world empires of his day. If they don't humble themselves before God's wisdom, God will orchestrate their downfall. And that leads to the next matching intersections. We hear two speeches from the wicked who reject God's wisdom. The first is a prideful boast that expresses a Greek philosophy of the day called Epicureanism, especially popular among the wealthy and influential. In this philosophy, the universe and our existence have no purpose and no meaning. All you can do is enjoy life's fleeting pleasures, and then you die. And when communities recognize no authority greater than their own desires,
then they all perish.
It inevitably leads to injustice and neglect of the poor.
Yeah.
Here, the Exodus story is called upon, when God's children, the poor and the outsider, are ignored by the privileged. God will ensure that the tables are turned. And so this section concludes by imagining a sad confession from the wicked once their lives end and they have to leave their wealth behind. They vanish like a shadow with nothing to show for it except a lot of regret. At the center of this section is a contrast between the destinies of the wise and wicked. Those who seek God's wisdom will live in the trust that one day all humanity will be accountable to God for their choices. In that final reckoning, the current social order will get turned upside down. The suffering righteous will get vindicated in the dawn of a new age, while the arrogant will be humiliated and left to their selfishness and folly. This entire first section is a challenge to all human cultures and kingdoms, and a stark choice is placed before the reader. Will I choose the way of wisdom and submit to God's authority or not? And what outcome do I want for my life, the fate of the wise or of the wicked? These are precisely the themes developed in the two remaining sections of the book, as our Solomon figure urges us to seek the way of God's wisdom, and then retells the story of the Torah as wisdom literature that places two paths in front of you. Chapters 7 through 9 return our focus to the story of Solomon from 1 Kings chapter 3. It begins with Solomon's request for God's wisdom, as the young, ignorant king gives up his dreams of wealth and power in order to seek God. And he later realizes that God's wisdom is the gateway to the truly good life. In the center of this whole section is a poem where God's wisdom is personified and praised as Lady Wisdom, who is like God's second self. Wisdom is a mirror and an image of God's goodness. And when humans live by this wisdom, they become true images of God who reflect God's character into the world.
It's true.
The ideas here are rooted in Genesis chapter 1, Psalm 8, and Proverbs 8 about the ideal, wise humans that God has made us all to become. The portrait that ends this section is of an old, wise Solomon who chose God's wisdom and is now offered as a model for later readers who can discover their own humanity by seeking wisdom as well. The book's final movement retells the storyline of the Torah as a kind of wisdom literature, picking up the earlier challenge to world rulers from chapters 1 through 6. He first considers 7 wise characters. Adam, Noah, Abraham, Lot, the ultimate challenge to the wisdoms, dishonors the Creator, and it leads to moral corruption.
Solomon's Temple.
Solomon's temple stood in Jerusalem for almost 400 years. It was the crown jewel of Jerusalem and the center of worship to the Lord. Almost half of the Old Testament writings took place during the time when Solomon's temple was still standing. Understanding the significance of its location, history, and design can greatly add to one's reverence for one of the most holy places in the world. The city of Jerusalem is located in an area of 3 major valleys: the Hinnom, the Central or Tyropian, and the Kidron Valley. The mountain range between the Central and Kidron Valley is called Mount Moriah. The peak of the mountain is a large protruding flat.
Welcome to Masonic Vibe. Today, I would like to tell you about 12 things about King Solomon's temple you should to know. If you study theology and history, then here are some significant facts about the temple that will definitely raise an eyebrow. Now, before we dive into things, it is important to point out that some details might
Old Testament of the Bible. And Solomon adorned the temple with objects made out of copper. Which was also a precious metal at the time. King Solomon ruled Israel for 40 years before dying in 931 BC. Upon his death, Solomon reportedly left behind an enormous amount of gold and other riches in his magnificent temple. But then, in 586 BC, the Babylonians invaded Jerusalem and sacked Solomon's temple.
When the Temple of Solomon was destroyed in 586 BCE, all the temple treasures were lost to history. And the ancient legend says that Solomon's treasures were taken out of Jerusalem and buried. There are those who believe that the treasures are to this day still hidden.
For centuries, the legend of King Solomon's lost treasure has been a source of fascination and mystery. In
Yo,
1885,
this guy's
the story was
voice.
exposed to a wider audience when author H.R. Haggard wrote his famous novel King Solomon's Mines, which speculated that Solomon's treasures were hidden deep in an underground mine shaft. But if there is some truth to this legend, then
we'll never know.
Is King Solomon's treasure buried? For some, the most likely location is the Timna Mines.
The where?
The Tinder Valley is located.
The Tinder Mines.
Over time, Archangel Michael.
Parents and
I think we're about done for the day, though.
This 1770.
oof, talk about they have different.
All right, I am live. Wait, why?
Yeah, I think we're done for the day until tomorrow. I'll try to get some things for tomorrow going. We'll find some stuff to watch tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a better stream. I'll do some research and find some things to watch. And we'll put together a good stream. So until next time, take care of yourself. Take care of others. I'm Justin. I love ya. Peace.